The harder you chase happiness, the further it runs from you. This sounds absurd, doesn't it? As if life were a cruel trickster, dangling joy like a carrot on a string, making sure it's always just beyond your reach. And yet the truth is far stranger and far older than our ambitions admit. The more you let go, the more life returns to you. This is one of those paradoxes that feels impossible to the rational mind. We live in a culture that teaches us to grip tighter, work harder, plan more carefully. We are told that joy, success, love, even peace of mind must be seized through relentless effort. Hold on with all your might, and maybe, just maybe, you'll win the prize. But nature whispers another story. Stand by a river at dawn, and you'll see it clearly. The water doesn't push or struggle. It doesn't demand that the ocean come to it. Instead, it glides, bends, flows, around stones, through narrow channels, across sandbars, always moving forward, yet never in a straight line. And still, without a map, without control, the river always finds the sea. Or watch the leaves in autumn. They don't cling desperately to their branches, fearing the fall. They surrender, spinning gently through the air, trusting the unseen wind. They do not know where they'll land, but they do not resist the journey. Waves, too, reveal this secret. They crash against the shore, disappear, and return again, over and over. No wave has ever been lost in the vastness of the sea. Each one is both an ending and a beginning. So we must ask, what happens when we stop gripping so tightly? What happens if happiness is not something to hunt, but something that grows naturally when we stop strangling life with control? The paradox of joy is that the act of chasing drives it away. Like trying to hold water in your fists, the tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips through your fingers. But the moment you open your hands, the moment you trust the current, life begins to give back in ways you never expected. This isn't passivity. It isn't laziness. It is alignment with the deeper rhythm of existence. A rhythm older than empires, older than the human story itself. And it invites us, gently but persistently, to step out of the endless chase and start truly living. There's an old story about a farmer who hired a young helper to sort potatoes. The task seemed simple enough. Put the big ones in one pile, the medium ones in another, and the small ones in a third. No heavy lifting, no back-breaking work, just sorting. At first, the helper thought it would be easy, but as the hours passed, he found himself agonizing over every single potato. Was this one medium or large? Should this small one go with the others, or did it belong in a different group? By the end of the day, the helper was exhausted. Not from labor, but from decision after decision after decision. Finally, he threw down the last potato and quit. The farmer was puzzled. "Why give up? You didn't even sweat." And the helper replied, "It wasn't the work that wore me out. It was the endless choosing." This is how so many of us live. We think our exhaustion comes from working long hours, chasing goals, keeping up with responsibilities. But often, what truly drains us is the constant effort to control, to decide, to measure, to evaluate, endlessly sorting the potatoes of our lives. Do I take this job or that one? Should I send this text now or later? Am I doing enough? Am I missing something? Should I hold on tighter? Or should I let go? Day after day, We get buried under the weight of micro decisions, each one whispering that our happiness depends on getting it exactly right. But here's the strange truth. Joy doesn't come from perfect sorting. It comes from realizing that not every potato needs your judgment. Not every moment needs your control. Think of building a raft out of balsa wood. If you keep tinkering, over-adjusting every beam, second-guessing every knot in the rope, you'll never push off from the shore. But if you simply trust the raft to float, you can step on and let the current carry you forward. This is the everyday tragedy of chasing happiness. We believe the problem is that we're not doing enough, but often the problem is that we're doing too much, strangling life with our decisions and controls. And just like the helper who quit after a day of sorting, our spirits collapse under the weight of choices that were never meant to be carried so heavily. The lesson is hiding in plain sight. Maybe the key isn't to chase harder, but to trust more. What the potato story shows us is simple, but profound. It isn't the heavy lifting of life that breaks us. It's the constant gripping, the endless attempt to control. Think about it. Most of the stress that gnaws at us doesn't come from hurricanes or disasters. It comes from the daily effort to manage the unmanageable, worrying about the future, replaying the past, trying to control how others see us, calculating every outcome as if happiness were a math problem with only one correct answer. But nature laughs at such control. The river doesn't argue with the rocks in its path. It glides around them. The tree doesn't demand that every leaf stay green forever. It lets them fall, trusting new ones will grow in spring. The tides don't apologize for leaving the shore. They know they'll return in their own time. When Alan Watts once said, "Nature itself pries your fingers open and shows you the illusion of control," he was pointing to this exact truth. No matter how tightly we hold on, life will eventually remind us that we are not the masters we imagine ourselves to be. And strangely, this is good news. Because the exhaustion we feel doesn't come from life itself. It comes from our resistance to it. The harder we try to dam the river, the more pressure builds. But if we let go, the water carries us forward. Consider the way music works. A symphony isn't one long-held note. It's a flow of highs and lows, pauses and crescendos, silence and sound. If you tried to control music into being only its brightest moment, you'd destroy the song. In the same way, when we try to control life into only good moments, we strangle its rhythm. The truth is, joy doesn't come from fixing or arranging reality into our preferred shape. It comes from stepping back, softening the grip, and moving with the rhythm that is already there. So here's the principle hidden in plain sight. Stop chasing, stop forcing, and you'll find yourself living. When you allow life to unfold without demanding constant control, you create space for joy to appear naturally. Like the river meeting the sea, like the leaf carried by the wind, like the wave returning to shore. Your life already knows how to move forward. The secret is not to master it, but to trust it. Life always seems to offer us two paths. On the surface, they look similar. Both are full of effort. Both demand our time. Both carry uncertainty. But underneath, they couldn't be more different. Path 1 is the path of control. Here you grip the wheel as tightly as you can. You plan every detail, calculate every move, and measure every outcome. At first, it feels powerful, like you're the monarch of your own little kingdom. But over time, this path extracts a heavy price. Control breeds anxiety, because deep down you know life won't follow your script. It leads to burnout, because no one can micromanage the universe forever. And worst of all, it creates separation from others, from nature, even from yourself, because everything becomes a battle between your will and the flow of life. Path 2 is the path of trust. Here you stop trying to be the king and instead join the democracy of existence. You recognize that life is not a monarchy ruled by one ego, but a vast ecosystem where cooperation nourishes all things. In a forest, no single tree dominates the others. Each one reaches for light, but also shares nutrients through hidden roots. Each tree stands tall, yet it thrives only because of the unseen network that binds it to the whole. Human life works the same way. When you loosen your grip and trust, something unexpected happens. Help arrives, people cooperate, circumstances shift. The current carries you forward in ways you could never have engineered. Trust doesn't mean doing nothing. It means doing your part, then allowing the rest to unfold. So you must ask yourself, do I want to be the anxious monarch of a collapsing kingdom, forever struggling to enforce control, or do I want to be part of a living forest, where shared strength creates balance and growth? Alan Watts once framed it with a simple insight. Shared power nourishes all things without dominating anything. This is the turning point. When you trust, you move from domination to participation, from forcing to flowing, from isolation to connection. The two paths diverge here. One leads to exhaustion, suspicion, and loneliness. The other leads to joy, cooperation, and a deep sense of belonging to something greater than yourself. And the paradox is this: the moment you stop chasing life, life begins to walk toward you. Here's the strange twist. The deeper you go into this path of trust, the more you realize that certainty itself was never the goal. In fact, the greatest freedom comes not from knowing, but from not knowing. Most of us fear uncertainty. We think, if I don't know what's coming, how can I be safe? How can I prepare? But uncertainty is not a threat. It is the very space where life reveals its beauty. Think about it. Light cannot shine on itself. A blade cannot cut itself. The eye cannot see itself directly. In the same way, the self cannot fully know itself, because we are always larger than our own understanding. The moment you try to pin life down, it slips out of reach. The more you demand a fixed answer, the more you crush the mystery that gives life its vitality. Alan Watts often invited his listeners into this playful uncertainty. What I really want is tied to what you want, and what you want, I don't know. Surprise me. That's the secret most people miss. I don't know is not weakness. It is liberation. When you no longer need to know everything, when you no longer insist on guarantees, you become open to wonder. You begin to live as though each day were a gift instead of a problem to be solved. Children understand this instinctively. Watch a child chase fireflies at dusk. They don't worry about where the firefly will land or how long the glow will last. They simply delight in the chase, in the mystery, in the surprise. Somewhere along the way, we traded that wonder for the illusion of control. But the invitation remains, to return to curiosity, to live with a heart that says, I don't know. And that's what makes life worth living. Think of the ocean. You cannot predict every wave, nor can you command its rhythm. But you can swim, you can float, you can ride the surf. The mystery of the sea doesn't paralyze you. It calls you into play. So instead of demanding certainty, what if we embraced curiosity? What if joy comes not from answers, but from the openness to be surprised? This is the deeper mystery of life. The moment you stop insisting on knowing, life begins to show you things you never imagined. So we return to the paradox we began with. The more you let go, the more life returns to you. At first, it sounded impossible, like some mystical riddle. But now, it begins to make sense. Look around, and you'll see that nature has been teaching us this lesson all along. The leaf must fall for the bud to grow. The tide must go out for it to return. The caterpillar must dissolve in darkness before it becomes a butterfly. Decay and impermanence, the very things we fear, are not enemies. They are allies. They are the gardeners of life. When we cling, we suffer. When we chase, we exhaust ourselves. But when we open our hands, something remarkable happens. Life begins to give back in ways we could never have forced. The friendships that arrive unexpectedly. The opportunities that appear when you stop scheming. The quiet sense of peace that comes when you no longer demand that the world bend to your will. And here lies the true joy, not in seizing, not in chasing, but in receiving. True joy grows in the soil of trust. It blooms in the space we create when we stop crowding life with our demands. Remember this. Letting go is not the same as losing. It is making room. It is clearing the field so that something new can grow. It is trusting that the current knows the way, even when we do not. So let the river carry you. Trust the tide. What is yours will arrive in its own season. And when it does, you will be ready, not because you forced it, not because you controlled it, but because you learned the art that holds all others, how to open your hands. This is the invitation of life. Stop chasing. Start living. Step into the rhythm that has been flowing since before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. The path to true joy isn't hidden. It's right here, waiting for you, the moment you let go.